It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello, and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name is Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are discussing Escape Plans by Gwyneth Jones.
Sure are.
Would you like to do the plot?
I think you should, actually.
Okay. It is the far future. Humanity has gone to the solar system, discovered that there is a hard limit on interstellar exploration, and has come back. Earth was a overpopulated ecological catastrophe, and so the spacers have created underground habitats for the remnants of humanity. ALIC, or Alice, is a acronymic speaker, one of the pioneers, the elect of this world.
The spacer elite.
Yes. Has gone down to one of the underground habitations for a vacation, sees a jockey at the space horse racing who catches her eye for some reason, and discovers that jockey is in trouble, or so she thinks, and decides to disguise herself as one of the numbers, the serials, the sub-people, to investigate. And predictably, this does not go well for her.
No.
And I would say that's where I would leave it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good... I think that you could just summarize this as, a cyberpunk misery tourist gets what's coming to her.
Yep, just about. Are there wizards in this book?
I think that everyone with venture is a wizard.
This is definitely wizards as imperialists, but
and as knowledge gatekeeper and as gatekeepers.
Yes, and they have access to the questionably intelligent computer systems that run the whole thing, which makes them functionally magical in the context of this world. So I would stretch it to wizards, yeah. There's no indication that the big computer is sentient, but the overclass who work with it personify it and ascribe volition to it, particularly when it's doing awful genocidal things as a way to obfuscate their own culpability in this process, which is prescient for 1986.
And in fact, I would say that the protagonist of this book is both a wizard and a lesbian.
Yep, this is the classic, the wizard is the lesbian book, I would say. And we're prior to the point in the development of the wizards versus lesbians genre where this causes any internal conflict at the beginning.
I would actually say that this isn't a matter of being prior to the development. I think that this is also a Gwyneth Jones thing.
I would agree with that.
I think part of it's just that Gwyneth Jones has always been interested in blurring those lines.
Yep. And the lesbians are present. Our hero, as we mentioned, is definitely a lesbian.
Yes.
So, why should you read this book?
It's fascinating.
Yes. I think I found this book very useful. I had not connected the, in retrospect, extremely obvious dots between Gwyneth Jones and Jeff Ryman before reading this book. As two authors from the same milieu writing it around the same time who are both really, really interested in East Asia.
Although I think that this is actually, Divine Endurance is Southeast Asia, and I'm pretty sure Escape Plans is set in South Asia. It's on the Indian subcontinent, but...
I should have said Asia generally. Yeah.
Not to get all area studies. But...
Yeah, but Jeff Ryman's particular area of interest was Cambodia, which would have been Southeast Asia anyway.
Yep.
But this book was very valuable to me in sort of being wait a second, and thus gave me new eyes to look at Divine Endurance with, among other things. And it also it is very interesting, and it raises a lot of interesting questions, and is a really interesting historical, piece.
Yeah.
I didn't find the experience of reading it to be particularly enjoyable.
Well, we haven't gotten to why you shouldn't read it yet.
Yes.
I would also say another reason why you should read it is that, also sort of from historical perspective of Gwyneth Jones is a really interesting author. And if you want to sort of watch her development as an author, that this is, an interesting choice that that this is worth reading to understand a fascinating author.
Yes.
This is not her best work.
No. This feels to me like she took in some of the, I mean, and I don't, obviously the author's dead and I don't know if this is at all correct, but that she took in some of the reactions to Divine Endurance and was like, oh, you didn't get that the Imperialists were supposed to be bad in Divine Endurance? let me make that louder for you.
Yes.
Let me just crank up that dial a little bit.
I mean, I would also say that if you're interested in cyberpunk, this is really, like, this book is worth reading. I mean, generally when people talk about lesbian cyberpunk, they think of Trouble and Her Friends and nothing else. And if there's a second book, especially these days, now if there's a second book, it'll be The Fortunate Fall. But, like, it turns out that there's a bunch of weird queer cyberpunk out there from, like, the, heyday of cyberpunk. And I think that this is interesting because also I feel like it is doing interesting things with cyberpunk as a genre before it's one of those works that's sort of already deconstructing the genre before the genre is really like has gotten so entrenched that it needs a deconstruction. And I always think that those works are very interesting.
Yeah, and as such, it like hits a couple of extremely prescient details on its way through, which I found very interesting.
Like this one came out only like a year or two after Neuromancer.
Yeah, and is like way more accurate what the internet will end up looking like. So I mean, kudos.
Points to that. It's just really fun, like the genre, has not even, or the subgenre at this point, has not even really gotten established yet, and Gwyneth Jones is already out there deconstructing it, which I appreciate.
Well, Gwyneth Jones is a very thinky author.
Yes.
Which is another Jeff Ryman parallel.
Yes.
And as such, that means that you're going to have to put on your thinking cap if you want to read this book.
Yes.
It's also really funny the way that like this book ensures that if you're not prepared to do that, you're not going to get like past the first page.
Right. Yes. So another reason to not read this book is that it has a very steep learning curve. It throws a million acronyms at you. It's one of those books that has a glossary at the back. But like once, for such a short book, and it's a short book, for such a short book, like it takes a while to, the learning curve is just incredibly steep.
A mere 300 and some odd pages.
272. I just looked it up.
Depending on the font and the edition.
The print is fairly large from what I recall.
Yes, it is actually.
It's, so... But this is a plotty book. It's relatively short, but it takes a while to get through. You can't zoom through it. And also another reason why you shouldn't read this book is that if you don't like being sad, you shouldn't read anything by Gwyneth Jones.
I have a few more specific ones. I think that I like Divine Endurance slightly less having read this book.
That's fair.
And that may be a hazard that you do not want to take on board if you like Divine Endurance just for the purposes of why you should read this book that we already mentioned. The protagonist of this book is, again, this is not, as we mentioned, this is not unique in the Gwyneth Jones catalog. The protagonist of this book is a monster.
Absolutely.
And you are in close first person with her the entire time. Like in Divine Endurance, we at least got breaks,
Yes. Yeah.
So you really do have to just be prepared to spend the entire runtime of this very, if not long, then at least like densely
intense
written and jargon heavy book, attempting to figure out what this person is thinking. And it's not a person who you are going to want to like or enjoy the company of, probably. So that's a reason. Yeah.
No, that's a good reason not to read this book. The protagonist is absolutely a monster. And I mean, the book is aware of this, but still, like, this is a whole lot of being brought into close proximity with an absolute monster.
Yeah, but that's sort of the major reasons why I would say not to read this book, at least for me, is like it didn't take me effort to get through it the way that it has taken me effort to get through some of the ones that we've done recently. It's not a bad book. It's an interesting book.
Yes.
It's a book
I
that'll
will
make you
also,
think a lot. But
I will also say, actually, a good reason to read this book is if you've ever been, like, this is clearly written by somebody who is interested in the West's relationship to Asia, which Isaac's already pointed out. And, like, this person, the narrator of this book is absolutely a sort of person you will run into if you run around with, anybody who works in global development or international education, or really even just area studies, or the NGO sector. This is a person you will absolutely run into, and so there is something both unpleasant about being put in this person's head, but there's also something kind of cathartically satisfying about seeing this type of guy just be like absolutely dissected.
I would say that this, in the short runtime of this book, this character represents a number of types of guy. Like, we run the gamut from at the start, like benevolent, liberal racist, all the way through to embittered expat, and all the stages within that arc.
I have met many people who have run that gamut. So yeah, like, this is clearly, for a book that is in some ways so that has such a barrier to like connecting to any of its people, what with the heavy use of acronyms and info dump, and like this book's bizarre ability to ridiculously info dump while still having you be completely clueless about what's about the setting and what's going on. Just like with such a barrier to connecting to any of these people as people, boy, does this book have a real clear glimpse of certain kinds of people and a really deft hand at depicting and then skewering them.
I would agree with that, yes. We should talk about the content warnings.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so I mean, the sex tourism is one of the many kinds of poverty tourism that our narrator engages in, and she spends a while with a 15-year-old girl who she has basically just hired as a live-in human pet who she has sex with.
Explicitly a pet who she has sex with, and she feels bad about having sex with the 15-year-old who she is the slave master of, because she's worried that people might think that it amounts to bestiality.
Yes.
And then they have a romance later in the book. Again, I think the author is aware of how fucked up this is. However, that is a thing that happens.
Yes.
And you should be aware of that.
Yes. This is one of these things where you really have to understand going into this book that the narrator is not reliable.
Yes.
But yes, they have there's all sorts of consensual and non-consensual messing around with brains. And
brainwashing, torture, indiscriminate murder of civilians, like keeping people in sub-poverty, animal conditions, rampant racism, although not mapped onto anything specific from the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's a certain degree of homophobia, coming from both ends of the society here.
Yeah.
That's probably about it. But there's some big ones within that.
Yeah, like the thing is, if things involving the sexual exploitation of minors is a absolute no for you in this in reading material, don't even get near this one, because it really engages with that, and I would say that this book is not an apology for that or excuse making of that, but the narrator herself romanticizes it.
Yes.
So
it should also be noted that this is a thing that keeps happening in Gwyneth Jones books.
Yes. This is clearly a theme Gwyneth Jones is interested in. But the thing is that in Divine Endurance, Divine Endurance is in third person, and that really does make a difference.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Let us go on to the spoiler zone and
Yes.
discuss this thing.
All right.
It is possible to read this book as a prolonged satire on one's fellow travelers, who are just the wrong kind of leftist. And if that's a genre you enjoy, that's another reason to read it. To go on what is admittedly a pretty small pile. Spoiler zone. So I've got a few I've got a few ins here.
All right.
One of the ones is that this book, for all of its obscurantism, doesn't want to be subtle sometimes.
Right. This book has to be obscurantist, not subtle. Like, it turns out these are different things.
Yes. It's like, but I think that the obscurantism is part of the point. It's like, it goes from like unloading like pages upon pages of cryptic acronym bullshit onto you, like almost immediately into the child rape.
Yeah.
And I think that is a thing that it is doing deliberately.
Oh, absolutely. I think that a lot of the bullshit is very specifically our narrator trying to, disguise what she's doing.
Yeah, no, all the jargon is distancing, and that's part of the point.
Right. It's distancing from the child rape. It's distancing from all of the other kinds of slavery and exploitation that are going on. It's distancing from just like what an asshole the narrator is.
Yes, we of course get to use dehumanizing language for the subclasses. Although I really enjoyed the no, don't call us numbers. That's offensive. Call us cereals.
Right.
Is a nasty little joke.
Yes.
Because the culture as the when one of the first things that we see our asshole narrator doing before she meets Millie is that she's having discussion with Yolanda, about whom we must talk a lot later because Yolanda is also a fascinating character.
Yeah.
Yolanda is an aristocrat from the sub-level and a climber and a political operator, but who's also a true believer, which is a really interesting combination of things to be.
Mm-hmm.
But Alice offends Yolanda in a way that Yolanda can't do anything about right at that moment because of Alice's position by being like, oh, your God is basically analogous to our computer.
Right.
It's pretty much the same thing, right? And Yolanda is offended by this, as one might well be, because the sub people have a sort of their theology is an understanding of a digital universe in which we're all sort of interlocking information, and all of their local lingo and jargon are 1980s computer terms, and they're named things like RAM, and I can't remember any other examples at this point, but a lot of them are named after like computer things. But the point being that their culture is derived from the world that from what they've been told to be, because of the nature of at least partially because of the nature of the imperial thing, which I think is a commentary on evangelism as part of the imperial machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that doesn't make it invalid, and it doesn't make it important, and it doesn't make them not people, which is something that Alice kind of grasps over the course of this book. Which is another thing that I should have mentioned in the why you shouldn't read this is that if you're hoping for Alice to really,
if you want a redemption arc, you're not going
to get one.
I think one of the things I really enjoy about this book is how at the end, Alice is patting herself on the back for the fact that she's decided, she unlike all of the other elites, she understands that these people are people, and so instead of trying to meaningfully do anything to help them, she's just going to, immiserate herself and, feel virtuous.
Yeah, I really enjoy her, protestations of guilt to Millie before she's even gone through half of the things that she's going to go through before Alice has. And Millie being like, who's blaming you, Alice? Why do you think this situation is about you specifically, Alice? Millie is our messianic figure, and
Yes.
one of the interesting things to talk about with this book is what she's doing here. Um, part of Millie is part of the reason that Millie is here is that this is in part a commentary about messianic movements among oppressed peoples, from from your boxers
Mm-hmm.
to to any number of other examples of this.
Really more the Taiping than the Boxers.
The Taiping, yeah, sorry, I get the Taiping and the boxers confused in my head, which is unfortunate.
One of these was a lot more successful than the other one.
Yes. It is, in fact, much more like the Taiping.
One of these killed more people than World War One.
Yes. We should throw in a non-Asian example. Let's go with the German Peasants' War and the Anabaptists. But also, Millie is there because the title of this book is Escape Plans. And one of the things that this book is interested in, perhaps the entire theme of the book, as mentioned in the title of the book, is how do we get out of here? And out of here represents very different things for different people, depending
At different times.
At different times, depending on what your experience is, what your stratum of society is. For Alice, it's how do I get out of the underground initially.
Well, first it's just how do I get out of the boring rut that my privileged life has set me in.
Yes, and for her culture, it's how do we get out of this pocket dimension, which is that we have discovered that we are in, which is a big flashing metaphor for, oh God, what do? We've run out of things to colonize.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep our culture from crumbling like Rome? And then the super metaphor is, oh God, we're all going to die. How do we not die? Which is the most wizardy part of this particular wizards versus lesbians setup.
Yeah.
And Millie provides a potential answer to all of these questions for all people. She's a thing for all people, depending on who's looking at her. What Yolanda sees when she looks at her is one thing. What Alice sees when she's looking at her is one thing. What the people see when they look at her is one thing.
And what Alice sees when she's looking at her depends on what Alice is trying to escape. I think you're right about this, because first Millie just represents an escape from boredom and and an escape from liberal guilt. And then she becomes like an escape from the situation that she has gotten herself stuck in.
Yes. It is one of my favorite pieces of the book is that no matter what phase of her journey Alice is on, when she thinks of Millie, she blames Millie for entrapping her.
Yes.
Like, she is certain that Millie asked her for help, which did not happen.
At no point does this happen.
Alice had to, approach Millie, and
Alice basically stalked this girl who's an enslaved space jockey, or cyber jockey,
and then blew her cover, to the extent of whatever that means in this context. But but at no point, even after all of this should have been extremely apparent to her in retrospect, does she blame herself for the way that her life fell apart when she laid eyes on Millie. But yeah, no, Millie then represents the possibility of escape or transcendence or a different future for humanity or enlightenment, which is where some of her followers situate themselves, the correct alignment with the universal flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fitting that Millie is essentially a non-character.
Sort of, except that you get this. I really like that you get this brief moment in the book where you actually just get to see Millie in in day-to-day life.
Right, as a human being.
As a human being, eating and going to work and just doing the everyday things that everyone around her is doing. And yes, she's still this very important figure, but you get to see her be a person in between when she's this sort of celebrity and figure that Alice is making too much of, and then she vanishes and becomes much more of a messianic figure. But in between, you get a moment where it's just like, oh no, this is still just a young woman.
Yes,
she's a smart and extremely charismatic young woman, but she's still a young woman who's not particularly privileged and is, just doing her best.
Yeah. The one thing that we know about her personality is that she's a good horse racer and that she likes kids.
And and she has this sort of she's just fairly calm and pragmatic and and soothing.
Yeah, she gives off an appearance of wisdom, which is what you want from your messianic figure.
She gives off an appearance of wisdom, but if you sort of step back and look at how she's actually depicted, she has this sort of mild, um, mildly amused, very slightly exasperated babysitter vibe.
Yes.
And even not even just with Alice. I mean, the most with Alice, because Alice is the one who needs the most babysitting. But like, just with everyone, like she's already this extremely charismatic figure, and you kind of get the impression that part of why she's a charismatic figure is that she is kind and hard to impress.
Mm-hmm. But another thing that the book does that I really like is that it raises the mystery of who Millie actually is and sort of gives little breadcrumbs in various directions, and different characters have theories about it. But it is never resolved.
Right.
And it's completely unimportant. The truth is completely unimportant, which the book recognizes.
Right. And also what eventually happens to Millie.
Also completely unresolved, not important, way less important than what her legacy turns out to be.
She's almost certainly dead, but
yes.
I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know, and we'll never know how or why, or when. And yeah, she is, like, Millie the figure is this, blank canvas for everybody in the book, and it never gets resolved. I just like that there's this reminder that there was also a person at the heart of this symbol. This is something that we've actually seen in other. I think that's come up as a theme in other books sometimes, is sort of, what does it take to be a revolutionary? Who is able to be a successful revolutionary? And the tension between being a successful leader and especially of a revolution, and being like a successful human being. So
yes, although in this one, Millie is also not intentionally a revolutionary. One of the few things that we hear her say is that I wish they wouldn't.
Right. Yes.
So she is just who she is.
Right, which is part of, I think, why she's a little bit more of a functional human being than a lot of the others that we revolutionary leaders that we run into. But this book is interested in that. This book is still interested in that tension. Really, as was Divine Endurance, though from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think it's maybe mythologizing in that I don't know if that type of person really exists. I think it's a way that, like, Christians particularly like to think about Christ.
Yes, as sort of being both
a bit ahistorical.
Right, but you're right that they like to think of him as both a real person who is really there, but also somebody who can sort of be everything to everyone.
Yeah, and as sort of an individual to whom this happened, rather than like a political leader, and an ambitious one.
Yeah,
which you kind of had to have been, but that's a
no, that's a good point. That it is like Millie is very much a Christ figure, very specifically, as opposed to other kinds of messianic figures.
Yes, although the leader of the Taiping was also a Christ figure.
He was Jesus' little brother.
He was Jesus' little brother. So, this is not out of place.
The thing is, he was Jesus' little brother. I would not necessarily actually say that he was a Christ figure. I mean, among other things, part of his mythology, his self-mythology was about not, okay, well, Big Brother's the one who went and died for our sins. I'm here to conquer.
Right? That's true. Okay, but this is all a bit of a tangent. This is all probably a bit of a tangent, but I mean, this book brings it up. It certainly does.
Yes, I think that in this case, as much as gratuitous Christianity can be annoying, I think in this case it works partly because the book is very much from the perspective of the Westerner coming to Asia and projecting all of their preconceptions, and so of course, a book that is so closely from Alice's perspective, Millie is going to be very much a Christ-like Messiah.
I want to talk about communism. Oh, communism!
Oh, good.
The way that communism is treated in this book, because And I'm wondering if this and because I'm also thinking of the Child Garden in here, like if when you were writing about totalitarianism in the 80s, you had to code it communist, like no matter what the rest of what you're doing is, is saying.
Well, I mean, I think that the major totalitarian government in the 80s was the USSR, so
Yes. But it struck me as particularly like strange in this book because the it is such a book about imperial expansion.
mm-hmm.
Like it is that is the major like element is, on the one hand we have, population bomb paranoia,
Uh-huh.
with, and on the other we've reached the limits of where we can expand, and this is, driving us insane and killing us
Mm-hmm.
and infecting us with, angst and ennui. But the pioneers, the Venturans, the space people are a communist system with communist roots, which is done either sort of textually and with giant symbols like "Let 100 Flowers Bloom" is the name of the chapter in which they explode the pioneers explode the underground colonies that tried to form a different form of government,
Uh-huh.
which is about as subtle as dropping a brick on, on your head. And it's like I think that there's a rhyme here, and I'm not sure how much of it is intentional with the way that Alice, even as she goes through this process, absolutely refuses to look herself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Because her position throughout the book as this colonist is overwhelmingly colonist, is like tourist from the West. It's not like, tourist from the upper echelons of the party in China coded.
Mm-hmm.
That's really that's really the story that's being told, because that's the perspective that the author brings,
Yeah.
and that the author has to bring.
So why is it all? So why do we keep coming back to communist China of all things?
Yes, that is the question that I want to ask.
Partly because this is the point in time when, China has come out of the Cultural Revolution and is still communist. This is, this is before Tiananmen, and it's before
Right.
the major economic reforms. And I think that, I think that for a lot of people of that generation, for one thing, if you're a leftist at this period in time, this is when you're going to run into a lot of really annoying leftists who've just gone back from their friendship trips to China. And they can't wait to tell you how all of the, school children in the villages are so happy. I say, having met some of these people. Having met some of these people who in like 2012 were like still firmly believed that their early 80s friendship tour of the village of the post-cultural revolution village, rural villages in China was a completely authentic cultural and unmediated cultural experience. None of these people speak a word of Mandarin. So, like, I think that part of this is just coming from these are people who you run into, but also, like just I think communist China occupied was such a big polarizing thing in the left, right? Because they invaded Tibet. So if you're one kind of, like leftist who's obsessed with the East, then they're evil because they invaded Tibet. On the other hand, if you're a different kind of leftist who's obsessed with the East, they're still holding true to communism as, the rest of the communist world is starting to really crumble.
Tibet was maybe the piece that I was missing there, because the subculture's religion is not a million miles away from a Westerner's sort of, passing understanding of Tibetan Buddhism.
Right. Like, it's actually funny the degree to which this conflict among, like, different kinds of leftists is still playing out. Like, you'll still see Tibetan rainbow flags, like, on my block in this, leftist college town. So
This is true.
And you will still run into people who are, hardcore defenders of Maoism also in this leftist college town.
Yes. We should also, in speaking of imperialism and making it distinct from communism, we should not obfuscate the fact that China is itself an imperial power.
Yes. As was the USSR. Like, these were, like, I mean, the thing is, and China has a long legacy of being settler colonialism. Both the imperial era China and the PRC. And for that matter, the Republic of China, they just, like, didn't get as long a run up at it.
But that is the Chinese imperialists are not the satirical target of this book, however.
No, but I think that, this is coming out of the community. This is coming out of the community of well-meaning leftists who are like really fascinated by what's going on in Asia in general and China in particular.
Yeah, I would say that is accurate.
And I think that is a big part of why communism is, and particularly Maoism or Maoist influenced communism, is looming so large in these books.
Mm-hmm. I actually kind of want to bring that to the discussion of Yolanda.
Yes, let's talk about Yolanda.
Which I want to have, because Yolanda is a figure who I think is an accurate description of a person who is like a power broker or a politician in one of these in a society like this,
mm-hmm.
who would be invisible as a sort of person to that kind of foreign leftist,
mm-hmm.
Because she even though she is a true believer and she is in some ways an ideologue, the focus of her ideology is flexible based on what the scam is at any given time. B, she is not ideologically bound in any particular direction.
Mm-hmm.
She is just much more interested in being that person and fulfilling that social role in whatever direction it happens to be. Like the implication that when she had her come to Jesus moment when her car crashed at the end of the book, it's like, well, did you really see Millie? And Yolanda's like,
Yes.
This is more like, I saw the way the wind was blowing,
mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to be purged
in
the revolution that I could see brewing among the sins. The sins are the other, like, they are the people who don't speak the standard language, who are the sort of I think the equivalent would be the race or nationality of people who were drawn into this border by imperialists who weren't paying a lot of attention and who were fomenting an independence movement as a result of that.
They're kind of the Chechens, if we're going to keep going with
yes,
with communist era rebels.
But they're so Yolanda sees the writing on the wall and becomes a messianic figure for the Millies, or become not a messianic figure, an apostle.
Yeah.
For the Millies, but in such a way that the Millie orthodoxy hate her.
Right. Well, to some degree, because she's trying to co-opt their movement.
Exactly. And the way this person is such a fucking survivor.
Like, it ends up being kind of admirable. You're like, oh, Yolanda, you're back. And just like the deep and abiding mutual contempt between Yolanda and Alice as their relative social positioning keeps changing. And yet every time, who's on top and who has the power and in what circumstance changes basically every time they encounter each other. But boy, the mutual loathing does not change even slightly.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that this discussion is really putting together for me how much a book of satire this is, and like specifically contemporary satire and particularly like aimed at the author's friends kind of a satire.
Right. That's definitely the impression it gives anyway.
Yeah, which actually makes me enjoy it more in retrospect.
I mean, like, I think that it really speaks to, Gwyneth Jones' skill that the book also works, outside of that context as sort of a broader commentary on a lot of different kinds of power dynamics that are more lasting. But also, I think it does really work as contemporary satire.
There are a couple things about the way that it construes its politics that I think are just straight up either incorrect or that I don't like.
Uh-huh.
I think the major one being the sort of a fantasy of this is a thing that I pointed out in Byro Cormorant ages ago, which is the idea of the complete inescapability of the imperial power, which is partially it's just what's going on in Alice's head because she believes that implicitly for the entire book, and part of that is wrong. But like the part where the sort of the communist Brave New World's power just like genocides the people who formed a different kind of society by nuking them from orbit, isn't really how things work.
No, I think that that's a place where the novel is really dating itself, because that definitely was, like, I think we forget how much the sort of, even when we were kids, the sort of fear hanging over your head that everything was going to end in nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, it is a part that hasn't aged well, I will say.
Yeah.
Both because, I mean, it ticks the Gwyneth Jones "this book will depress you" box,
right.
Admirably, but in a way that does not read as true in the way that a lot of the other stuff in it reads as true. The secret police will arrest you and then forget that they've arrested you and will let you out by accident thing, 100%.
Yes. And I mean, the thing is that mass killings of dissidents sure was a thing then and sure is a thing now. But but it's very specifically being able to just completely wipe out such a broad swath by nuking from orbit, as opposed to from like a sustained campaign of on the ground killing, which is usually what we've seen over the last 40 years, is what it tends to take to wipe out a movement, or at least to beat it back into submission.
The nuking from orbit thing is itself a fantasy of power. And
yes. MacArthur used to be like, can't we just do that to the North Koreans and the Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese?
Right. And the answer is no, you can't. Obviously, no, you can't. There are a number of political and logistical reasons why you can't.
Especially once the other side also gets nukes.
But even without that,
yes.
Like, I don't care how post-scarcity you are, you're not going to throw in entire arcology. Although if you think a couple more steps through the whole post-scarcity idea, the whole setting kind of unravels, as it should, honestly. And that is sort of a way in which the book's reflectiveness fails at the last.
Yeah.
Because that is a place where the narrative is not smarter than Alice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And, we can say, well, it was 1986. And so, you are, as you say, dealing with it from that. But I did want to call that out as a place where it kind of lost me.
Yeah, I think you're right. That sort of distant, and the thing is, we do now actually have much more sort of distant, impersonal killing, but it's not on a nuclear holocaust scale. It's on a drones scale.
Yeah.
So
I really like the way that, I mean, the Ula-Ux or Ulao, or however you want to call them, the natives who have been put into slave collars and made into stormtroopers, death squads. That was extremely well observed.
Yes.
I really like the way that there's a thing going on here with the age gap thing, which is one of the things that Gwyneth likes to do, where Pia understands the world a lot better than her much, much older lover. And, when Alice is like, oh, there must be some sort of malfunction or something, that we wouldn't be deliberately using sexual violence to control the native population. and Pia looks at her like,
you can almost see.
I was literally your sex slave. Do you remember?
You can almost see like Pia turning to the camera to be like, "Do you get a load of this shit?"
Yes.
We got to talk about Pia.
Yes. But just to wrap this up, I think the stuff about the way that population control happens and the lies that imperialists and Westerners, and from all political persuasions, the lies that they tell themselves about it. Very, very well observed.
Yeah.
But yes, let's talk about Pia.
Yeah, so I mean, when we first encounter Pia, she's this, collared, somewhat brain controlled. Though actually, I want to talk about the collaring and brain control stuff later. But pet. One of the things I actually really enjoy about that early moment is that you get it's clear that using your pet as a sex slave is considered kind of gauche even by the locals who have this custom, and that everyone from the elite is looking down on Alice for indulging in this barbaric local custom of having a pet, and Alice is like, I'm a tourist, I want to get the authentic cultural experience. But that even most of the locals don't actually use their human pets as sex slaves, and Alice is doing that too because she's just awful. Like, I love her mental gymnastics of how she's attempting to thread this needle so that, to culturally and aesthetically justify why she gets to have a sex slave, even though absolutely everybody disapproves. And of course, none of them are going to stop her, but they disapprove.
There's a long, long history of Westerners going to the Middle East, to Southeast Asia.
To South Asia. And in fact, there's a long history of famous science fiction authors moving to South Asia so that they can have young boy.
Oh, did you know this book was nominated for the Arthur Clarke Award? Just like that, just randomly
putting that out
brought that
there
to mind for some reason.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, there's a long history of Westerners going to these places and being very excited about the possibility of having sex with minors, because it's a part of the rich cultural heritage of the place that they're visiting, which in some places makes them very interested in anti-colonialism. Some cases it makes them advocate for the rights of the local population in the Lawrence of Arabia kind of a way. In some places it really gets mixed up in their heads with queer liberation. There are people who are very interested in the rights of gay people back in the day, who did not make the distinction between underage prostitution and gay liberation. This is a thing that continues to happen, and it is certainly part of Alice's story here.
Yeah.
But Pia herself is I think as realized and complicated a character as she could possibly be, given that we can only look at her out of Alice's eyes.
Yeah. So, because then, it was definitely very uncomfortable when we, when you re-encounter Pia. And first, Pia is being about as standoffish and hostile towards Alice as one would expect and hope. And then she, bursts into tears and announces that she is in love with Alice.
Yes, and this is, I would say, a reaction that one could have.
Is absolutely a reaction that a teenager could have to encountering, her molester. And the way that Alice romanticizes it is absolutely a thing that said molester might do.
Absolutely. I wish that Pia hadn't been murdered off screen.
Yeah, me too.
It makes her feel as disposable on the part of the narrative as she is culturally. But
yes, on the other hand, it works very well narratively to then have the incredibly uncomfortable throughout the rest of the book. Have Alice make everything she does be about, mourning my poor lost beloved Pia, as she continues to act exactly as selfishly and awful as she has been throughout the book.
Yes. We should also note that the thing that caused Alice to go native, quote unquote, in the first place wasn't even Pia. It was getting a crush on a different woman,
yes.
Like native woman.
A different, young, vulnerable local woman.
Right. These people might be just a little bit interchangeable in your head. I think that it's intentional that a few of the subculture characters have the same name as each other, from Alice's perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that it's a gambit. It's certainly a swing the inclusion of Pia in this book and how she's treated.
Yeah.
And how you will feel about that is how you will feel about that.
That one feels like it's poking at some people who perhaps are not the author's friends, but who the author nonetheless knows. Not that we're going to, remember what awards this book might have been nominated for. So I also want to talk about actually the like cyberpunky mind control stuff, because I like that it's sort of left vague how much of this is actually real and functional, and how much of this is just a feature of the, social and institutional strictures on people's lives. Like, it's not that I think that the various slave collars aren't actually exerting a controlling force, but it's very clear that to some degree it doesn't matter. That the people who are wearing these slave collars still have continuity of self and memory across when they're wearing the collars on and off, the control collars on and off, and that the collars are there almost more for the to make everyone else feel safer, because it's this obvious symbol of control, but it's not like these people have any alternatives. It doesn't matter.
Alice gets a collar put on her, and it doesn't control her thoughts.
Exactly.
And
it
gives
doesn't
her
change
a
her
shock
as
when she
person.
does something.
Right.
When she does something that she's not supposed to. But other than that, that's pretty much, they're just like shock collars for dogs, pretty much. It's not, the illusion is part of the way that she has been trained to think of these people as being mindless.
Right. Like there's this, the collar is put on there partly as a, dehumanization, and also partly it's this fantasy that while they're wearing the collars, they don't have interiority. And then, we find out that actually they absolutely do. But it's a lot easier, perhaps, to justify keeping a sex slave if you can go, oh, well, she's not really herself because she's wearing a collar.
This is contrasted by something about the book which bugs me, actually, which is processing, the 9 to 5, the labor that which is meant to be like essentially analogous to putting shoes together for Nike factory work.
Yeah.
Where in this book, it's like the subjective experience of it for Alice is your brain is literally turned off for 8 hours so that it can do sub-processing for the big computer machine.
Yeah.
And you have this causes like accruing physical disability like factory work does. Mm-hmm. But the author via Alice, and this is another one where that line gets a little bit shaky.
The author via Alice is definitely sort of not engaging with the mental emotional process of work of these kinds of jobs. Right.
The labor, it's like, imagine if this is what this kind of labor was, because I personally cannot imagine what working a 9 to 5 job might be like. And it did not work for me.
No, it didn't work for me either. I was like, honestly, that sounds, I think that it's supposed to be, oh, look, we're pretending that the sweatshop labor is humane when actually we're actually ignoring the costs. And we can pretend that it's humane because nobody's actually experiencing that. And similarly, and it is similar to the way that we sort of reconceptualize sweatshop labor to not think about, the actual day-to-day experience of doing it.
But I think in doing that, she's invented something which is not at all similar to what this experience of sweatshop labor actually is.
Yeah, exactly.
And because she's knocked the social component of sweatshop labor out of it by doing that, she has to reintroduce it in another place. Yeah. Which is the YouTube, the TikTok.
Yes.
That she invents. Which I want to get to, but finish your thought first.
Well, I was going to say that it is a little bit vague how everyone else who isn't Alice is experiencing this, though. Because everyone else seems to be, Alice seems to sort of come out of it and be like, whoa, the entire day just vanished. And everyone else doesn't seem to have that experience, and it's hard to tell if this is because there's something wrong with Alice. As she, we know that she gets some brain damage in this process. And it's hard, it almost feels like Alice isn't capable of processing this kind of experience, and so she's just blanking it out.
That could be actually. I think that that's a reasonable read. Is that it doesn't feel like complete the death of complete personhood for the people who are used to it and have been trained for it and doing it their entire lives.
Right.
Whereas Alice, who is shoved into working at a grocery store when she's not used to it, just experiences it as ego death. Although again, this is meant to be a manufacturing job.
Yeah.
And also the fact that Alice's brain is like 85 years old.
Right, also that.
Which nobody around her knows, which might be causing some calibration issues. But yeah, so there is some wiggle room in that. But I think that as a person who's trying to take on the metaphor and read it from the outside, it still doesn't. It felt a little bit weird to me.
Yeah, I feel like it could have either she should have done more with it or cut it. I felt like, but
yes, it's one of the more like science fiction-y parts of the book.
Yeah,
some of which work better than others.
Yeah. But in general, the reason why I'm even able to think that this is possibly a device is that I feel like a lot of what she's doing is showing you standard cyberpunk tropes, which this feels like, or which the shock colors are, or a lot of the ways in which the serials are supposed to be thinking differently, and then in each of these cases, there's sort of a cut to what the non-Alice people are doing and react, and how we don't get to see how they feel about it or what they think about it or how they're experiencing it, but we do get to see how they react to it. And in every case, we see that the ways that they react to it are so different from the ways that Alice initially conceptualizes it and then later experiences it, that I think that this is supposed to be part of a broader running theme in the book about how all of these like transhumanist in the future, everything is going to be experienced differently, are actually comforting lies that we're telling ourselves about the sort of cyberfication and of our society and dehumanization.
And your digital assistant is actually a guy in Bangladesh.
Right, exactly. Like, I think that that's I think that is what the novel is trying to do. I think that this is a place where, because we are so firmly embedded in Alice's perspective, it's not as clear as it could be, but that was my read on it. And I think that is what the author's trying to do. And so while it's not 100% successful, I actually really liked that. And it's part of why I really appreciate how, again, this novel is deconstructing cyberpunk before cyberpunk even gets off the ground. Like, there's so many novels that come after this that this is already parodying.
Yes. I did want to touch on PEC, the YouTube/TikTok analog. Because what it's doing in the text, like, this is like what people spend their free time doing is watching these video feeds that are like partially educational, partially just raw code, partially like other people are randomly being filmed and broadcast. So it's also like a stochastic way to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like what this is doing is sort of an answer to or a way to work around the age-old imperial canard of how could these ideas and messages possibly be spreading through this illiterate population, without the people talk to each other,
right?
Part, which is also missing from the sort of the work environment part of this. But in creating a sort of cyberpunk, answer to that question, and sort of also a cyberpunk analog to religious devotions. Mm-hmm. The author has accidentally really remarkably, gotten really remarkably close to what I spend my downtime looking at. So I think that props are to be had there.
Yeah, no, as you pointed out, I think that there are ways in which this book, possibly because it's poking fun at existing tropes, but it ends up having a more prescient view on some of the existing cyber stuff than its contemporaries. On the other hand, it also has acronymic, so yes. I'm not going to give this book too many props for being prophetic.
I mean, another thing that I thought was prophetic is the imagine a human who can't tell the difference between accessing the systems and talking to a recorded message bit.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which is very much normal people aren't going to be able to tell that they're talking to a chatbot, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the callback when she forgets that what these are and goes into them expecting to be able to talk to somebody real.
Right.
Uh,
Well, everyone else gets a chatbot, but Alice gets to speak to the manager.
right. That was very funny.
That was very funny.
Speaking of crumbling epistemologies, it's gonna be really, really embarrassing for all of us if it turns out I've been an AI this entire time. How hard could it be for a machine to learn to play G, D, A minor, D? Anyway, it's time for notes. Speaking of weird sex and Gwyneth Jones books, the fact that these people are called subs, and that, one of the first things that Alice says about Pia is what a sulky little bottom.
Yeah, well,
Which I think she's talking about her literal ass, but that's not how that reads to a contemporary reader.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's how it would have read to a reader in the 80s either.
Yeah, that's a little bit of an open question. We're definitely including the libidinal part of the colonial experience here.
I mean, yeah, very explicitly.
This book does the thing where there are both slaves and robots,
mm-hmm.
and I always find that fascinating because robots were invented to be as an analog for slaves in literature, and particularly slaves in automated production contexts. And it is weird to have both here, and I don't know why we have both.
Well, I mean, then again, if you look at today's automated production contexts, we have both low wage and or coerced laborers and also robots.
That's true. That is true. Some are good for some things and some are good for other things. So I guess that's another prescient thing then. I would agree with you there.
Like, I mean, a lot of why robots end up being a, stand-in for slaves and other, sort of oppressed laborers in science fiction is because that's engaging with the idea of, well, in the future, all labor will be replaced by robotic labor. And I think that, this book is accurately saying, well, sometimes it's still cheaper and easier just to have a guy in Bangladesh do it.
Yeah, a lot of times, in fact. And people will try to convince you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Japanese-ish word in here for some reason, which I guess it's because it's the 80s when the subs who are particularly sort of devout or from in their devotion to the machine religion are called monozuke.
Oh, yeah.
You would probably, the closest way that you translate that would be like machine helpers.
Mm-hmm. That definitely feels like this is cyberpunk. This is a cyberpunk novel. Right. We must, in the 80s, we must insert at least one word of Japanese, or, they will revoke our permission to publish.
Ticking that box. I think it's funny that Alice is a game designer. We didn't really touch on that at all.
But
one of the very early clues person is a horrible person. If you hadn't gotten that, was her casually mentioning wiping out a sentient species in her game design, process, and it's not clear as to whether that happened in a game or in real life out there in space.
Yep.
But her inability, her treating this whole thing as a game, and and also being an author who has gone to do,
right. She's both a retired game designer and also a blogger, basically. Again, another sort of prescient thing.
Yeah, it's very much like side-eyeing both myself and some of the people in the community who I don't like. But, what award did this book win or was nominated for? There are some things that I wish, there are some things that are a little bit too precious in here. The thing that I was like, please don't edit that out. Like the aristocrats, the subworld aristocrats mall is called Wonderland. And there's one part where somebody says, Alice, ... In Wonderland, there's a,
yes.
And I'm like, yes, you didn't have to do that. I knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
See also seriously calling the space people space cadets.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't need to do that.
This is, I mean, so one of the things that just fascinates me about this novel is, I mean, I think we are making this novel sound a little bit better than it is in our discussion of it, because there's a lot of really deep, interesting themes, but this novel is a mess. And this novel is absolutely a scrappy little weirdo from a press so small that they didn't even like bother to put the copyright page in the book. I had to look up what year this book was published in because they didn't have it inside the book.
But this is one of those authors who is very, very good.
Right.
Very, very smart, but weird enough.
It's fascinating to see like an author who genuinely has this sort of depth and intelligence and literary prose chops to write some like amazing works of literature. What she's writing when she's being weird and she can't decide, whether she's being satire or seriousness, and it's a small press, so the editor can so like she and the editor can do what they want, and it's really fascinating to see what the end result of that is. It's like it turns out that sort of mid-level Gwyneth Jones is just a fascinating mess.
It's also really interesting that like the Divine Endurance, the prose of Divine Endurance is poetic.
It is, yeah, and right? This is not.
And it feels like it was written by a completely different person.
Yeah.
Like if you aren't paying attention to the way that the themes and the content match up, like the prose itself is so different, which is on the one hand very impressive, and on the other hand, if you're going to go back to Gwyneth Jones stuff because you're looking for more stuff like Divine Endurance, this book, which was the next novel that she wrote, sounds like it is written in a completely different language, almost, literally in some places.
Yeah, which I mean, again, it's an impressive feat of capturing a distinctive voice. But oh boy, is it not the experience I was expecting. Which is also it's sort of a funny thing about experiencing this novel is you go, ooh, Gwyneth Jones, you start reading it, you go, what the fuck? And then by the end, when you're left feeling just sad, and it's like, I'd forgotten that I was reading Gwyneth Jones, and so I'd forgotten that I was going to end this book feeling sad.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, no, I would say, in all, I don't think this book is as good as Divine Endurance. No. Obviously, I don't think that it necessarily is a good book. I think that it's certainly full of ideas and is very interesting to think about and talk about.
Yes, I think if you are interested, this is another one of these books that I'm going to recommend if you're interested in like the history of genre or in style. Or, there's or craft, like, writing speculative fiction as craft. If you're interested in books as anything but a narrative experience, and the content warnings don't put you off, I would recommend reading this. But if you just want to, like, read a novel, I don't think I could, that's a different story.
Let's wrap this thing up. All right. I think that's a good note to end it on.
Thank you, Leora. Thank you to my lovely wife for reading this book and then making me read it.
Yes. And by the transitive property, then making me
read
it. Thank you, ? And next time on the podcast... I
don't know yet.
I don't know yet. We'll find out.
Actually, I think I know, but I haven't put it on the list. So it'll be a surprise for you and everyone else.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
Bye.